All right, welcome to Win the Day live stream, where we talk about how to win the day as a real estate agent. Today, we're talking about pricing, because in a flat or declining market, and I know some of you are in a market that's still rocking and rolling, but I think most of you and us here are in a flat, if not a declining market. And in that situation, price is everything, right? You penalized if you don't get it right, or worse, you penalize your seller if you don't get it right. And so we're going to talk about it. First, before we do, Julie, I just want to do something real quick here.
Yep.
Here's the thing, people. You're not going to want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's always price. But John, you don't understand. No, I understand just fine. If it's not selling, it's because it's too expensive, or they can't get in, or there's, that. I'll give you an example. Gal writes, I'm staying in here. Another thing with price, do not, when you put it high and you're not getting any activity, do not ghost the seller. Don't do it. You need to talk to them about it, right? Nothing is something. Nothing's happening. You're going to feel this massive weight to hide. But nothing tells us something. It tells us the price on it. All right. This house is fabulous and priced appropriately. But we're dropping it 20 grand on Friday morning. I'm emailing, calling other agents, trying to see if anyone has buyers. Okay, good. We like that. It seems like there's not many buyers and or buyer agents right now. Okay, not buying that. I think the main problem with my property, here it comes, is that it's only a quarter acre, and everybody in that area wants an acre minimum. How about this? I bet if you lower the price low enough, you'll get offers. Matter of fact, you might even get multiple offers, even if it's only a quarter acre.
Yeah.
And I want to be flip about it, but it's always price. It's always price. Right, Julie? That's your cue.
Yep. So one of the things, rather than just going right to a formula on how to price a property, I back up, because my perspective when I sit down with a seller is to set expectations. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do. And you've got to recognize, first of all, that sellers only know what they're being told by the media and by other realtors, or what they're seeing in their neighborhood, right? So they're looking at national media, which, do we always believe everything that the national media says? I mean,
no,
I don't. But sometimes they have overall trends, right? Okay. So I would say, if you're talking to realtors across the nation, or any kind of journalist who's covering real estate, you're hearing that it's tough, and that the overall picture is fewer sales. So you've got to get to understand, as a realtor, as a professional, you need to know what the actual numbers are. Okay. So for example, what's the 50-year average for the 30-year fixed interest rate? Can anyone name that off the top of their head?
7.24.
You're close. Mark?
I don't have it.
Destiny, any idea? It's 7.58.
Wrong.
So that's something that you need to understand. You need to know, like, what are the long-term averages? You also need to know, okay, the entire national scene matters, in that, okay, interest rates affect borrowers, interest rates affect people who are getting a mortgage. They also affect sellers who have a 2.5, 2.75, 3.1, 4% interest rate, and they don't want to move and now take a 7% interest rate. So that's one of the causes of what's been happening. So I'll start with that, and I wanted to share my screen with a couple
Julie, can we ask questions as you're doing this?
Absolutely.
My question is, as a newer agent, and I'm curious myself, what's the significance in needing to know that large of a time span in the averages when you're talking to a seller or a buyer about
perspective?
You're giving them perspective, okay? Because when they think the sky is falling and everything's going wrong, they don't have perspective on what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to give them perspective. When they say, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop,
Mm-hmm.
and we're at 6.875, and oh my God, the sky is falling, interest rates are so high. Well, actually, we're below average. So that gives people perspective. And then when you talk to them about, so for example, what do you know your interest rate on your credit card?
I don't have one.
1978.
So for people who have them, they're ranging, a low interest rate is about 16%, 15,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are at 30.
Yeah.
So if you have a whole bunch of credit card debt and you're at 30%, doesn't 7% look pretty dang good? If you could refi all of your debt and have a lower interest rate, that's going to get you out of debt faster. But not that that's what you get a mortgage for. But the reason why I have this slide up is I kind of wanted to just show, like, this is Greater Phoenix. These are broad strokes, but it just shows you, okay, so here we have accepted contracts. You have number of contracts each week that have been accepted. If you have a perspective, and this isn't the slide I wanted to show, it was easier before when we were, when I was looking at them. The overall trend, and I'm trying to find that on my share screen. The overall trends, if you know your overall trends in your market, you're going to have a much better understanding. So,
can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
50 years is wonderful, but I think, Destiny, what you're going to want to do is take a look at 12 months, 1 year, a kind of a rolling average, 5 years, maybe a 10-year, 30-year, 50-year. Break it down into a little bit.
Yeah.
50 years is wonderful. That gives you a wide view, but you also need to have some earlier perspectives.
I like it.
So in this slide, sorry, I'm losing my place. All right, you guys can see this.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm kind of showing what's happening in Phoenix Metro. So if you know what's happened overall, and you look at the national average, and then you look at, Phoenix, for example, this one I actually have narrowed down to just Scottsdale. See where I have Scottsdale up here? These are years. Okay, this is, each dot represents a week. This is when you understand trends like this is when they started raising the interest rates. See this little peak? See down here, it's February, March of 2022. The 22 is over here. We have 22, 23, 24, 25. This is how many sales were happening on a weekly basis in March of 22. Look at that. It's between 500 and 550, up over 550. And then as they raised the interest rates, this is what happened. See this? Decline, down, down, down. August, it started to flatten, and it's been here. And this is the number of sales. Okay. It's called Cromford Market Index. It tells you who's got the advantage, buyers or sellers. And this is, in order to price a house properly, you have to understand the trends. Okay. When we were up here, and we were up here, just to give perspective, from 2015 until this point right here, February, March of 2022, it was a seller's market. For people who don't know what a seller's market is or a buyer's market, just put the word advantage after that. Seller advantage. There were a lot more buyers than there was inventory. So listing agents could put any price on a house. And if you were overpriced, the market soon caught up with you because we were going like this. So it didn't matter that you didn't know how to price it. Okay. But in a buyer's,
I thought you were rewarded if you priced it high. It took a little bit longer to sell, but you got more money for it.
Yeah, well, and the market was going so fast it corrected itself quickly.
Yeah,
and
your pricing error.
Yeah,
you didn't have to have any skill or any knowledge on how to price a property. You could just pick a number, and the only thing that would happen that would be negative, instead of getting 15 or 20 offers, you got 3. And the seller didn't know the difference because you got an offer right away.
But those hypermarkets are very fast burners.
Yes, they are.
18 months maybe.
But what it does is it makes realtors think that they're really good at what they do and that what we do for a living is really easy and you make a lot of money not doing much. So it gives everyone a false sense of confidence, right? So this is 2022 as they raised the interest rates. They capped the interest rates in about October. It already had flattened in the summer. So here we are in October where we just bounced along down here.
Mhm.
See these numbers, see how if you look at this black number, when I do these dots, these are measurements that we use here in Phoenix Metro, and you don't need to have this Cromford Market Index to be able to come up with these numbers. I'll give you a formula. But basically, if the number is at 100, that means that the market is in balance. Balance is defined as about 6 months from the time you go on the market until the time you close. Okay?
180 days.
Yeah, 180 days is balance. You're not multiple offers. Buyers have time to think about it, write an offer. You go back and forth. Sellers make some repairs, but maybe not. No one really has the advantage, and the market just is the market, right?
Mhm.
When you start to drop below 100, that means that you have less demand and more supply, or a lot less demand and the same supply. It's basically buyers are starting to gain an advantage. And you're like, why? What does this all mean? What's this got to do with pricing? You have to understand this in order to price a property correctly, right? So if you look at this, you see how here we are 2025 for Phoenix Metro. It just starts over here. 23, 4, 5, they're all kind of in the same path. This week, we're all in the same spot. So Phoenix Metro in the CMI is right about, it's actually right around 90. This shows it as, I guess I'm behind. I'm looking at the current numbers, but the Phoenix Metro overall is turned into a buyer's market. So when you're pricing a home, if the trend is to continue to go down like this line right here, you have to get ahead of that. And you have to price a home extremely aggressively. So if you're not priced aggressively, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, see how this is going down? The demand is declining. That's what this is. And if the demand is declining and you don't get your property sold, a week, 2 weeks, a month from now you're going to get a lot less.
So the green line is demand.
No, these are just, see
I'm
how,
sorry, the sage, the kind of
Number
the
of sales.
oh yeah. So here, this is just, it's called Cromford Market Index. Here's the formula I'll give you that anyone can use in any market rather than using the Cromford Market Index. This is a lot more complicated. It takes a lot of factors into consideration, a lot of metrics. But here's a very simple one. John, how many listings do you guys have right now?
67.
And how many
Are you talking about me or our whole market?
Just you.
All right, 67.
How many do you have in escrow?
13.
13 divided by 67
equals not enough.
is 19.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's the speed of the market that you can understand, and so John's market, John's world, if he has 67 listings and he has 67 in escrow, it's a buyer frenzy. It's on fire. It's it's a seller's advantage market, but that means as soon as you put one on, it comes off, right? So the higher the number, the more seller advantage, the higher the speed of the market. You have to understand the trend, the speed of the market. The lower the number, the lower the speed of the market. So his number is 19.4.
Actually, it'd be 5.4, 5.1, wouldn't it?
13 divided by 67.
Okay, so that's 0.19, so 19%.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not percent, it's just a number. But the contract ratio is measuring the speed, okay? So the lower the number, the slower the market.
Gotcha.
The higher the number. Okay, so John, do you know all the listings in your market? Like, what's your total? Do you guys know that?
Total number of listings? I don't know. If I was to say 4,700, would you believe me? I could probably tell you.
Yeah, I'll use ours. I'll use Phoenix Metro. So we have, I think, let me see. Is it 7,100?
What the hell?
Divided by 23,000. I'm using round numbers. Okay, so Phoenix Metro has about 7,000 pending under contract, whatever. So let's just, I'm using round numbers. So
All right.
7,000, and we have about 24,000 active.
So it's 29.
So the speed of the market is, so 30 to 60 is considered balanced. Okay. Except in luxury, the number's lower in luxury because there's fewer of them. So the numbers get kind of skewed. So 29, we're at the very low end of balance. Remember I said we just went into a buyer's market. We've been in a buyer's market for about 6 months, just barely. Does that make sense? Just remember 30 to 60 when you're using this method is balance. The lower the number, the slower the market. So you can do your own in any market by just using that contract ratio. And if you're tracking it on a weekly basis, you know that it's going up or down. So without having to rely on some other random number, you can measure the market. So coming back to how do you price a home, right? So one of the things that I do is I start with, and I think most people do this. You're going to start with the tax record, right? Of whatever the property is that you're trying to assess, right? So I'm using this just kind of as a CMA that you guys can see here.
Can I stop you for 1 second? So right now on the Emerald Coast, we have 1,230 pending. So I'd take 1,230 and divide that by 6,044 that are active, and that would give us a 20.
So that's a very painful market, right?
What?
30 to 60 is balanced. This means it's a very strong buyer's advantage market. Okay, so if you're at 20, you guys are wanting to generate buyer leads and you're wanting all of your listings to be extremely competitively priced. If they're not going to sell.
100% on that.
You might be chasing the market down. Okay, so if you are not priced aggressively and the trend is that number's going down, so look at it on a week by week basis. I know here in Phoenix, February, end of January, our inventory was up 44%.
A lot more sellers.
Year over year, 44% increase in activity. Active listings. The buyer demand has been the same, which wasn't bad, but that contract ratio has gone down because the listings have gone up. Does that make sense? The more listings you have, you got to think it's a big, huge weight that the buyer demand has to push up. And the heavier that weight gets, the more out of balance it gets, right? If there's not enough demand. Okay, so coming back to pricing, a very simple formula, and I'm a numbers geek, so I won't go into all the stuff that I do, but just start with your tax record and look at specifically that community, like that subdivision, right? And then you expand out from there. So I'll look at not comps, like I won't say plus or minus 20% of the square footage, plus or minus 50 of the lot size, and then look at condition. I'll just start with the entire subdivision. So for example, if it's McCormick Ranch, I'll name a subdivision. I'll look at everything that has sold in McCormick Ranch in the last 6 months, and I'll sort it by the most recent sale. And I'll print that out. It has nothing to do with how many bedrooms, baths, lot, pool, no pool. It's all of them in that community. You bring that along to your listing presentation because it's not good, it's not bad. It's just the facts. So you can show it to your seller, right? And you show them, okay, here's your, from the tax record, property. Here's your square footage. Here's your lot size. Here are the amenities. And then you do plus or minus percentages on the very basics. Doesn't matter the bedrooms, the baths, or whatever. What matters is take the condos out if you're doing a single family. Take the single family out if it's condos. Only compare like type properties. But then you look at what's sold. Okay, that's going to show you that they're going up or they're going down in that community. Because you have to look at who is the buyer for this property. When I first started in real estate, I was taught you take the tax record, you do percentages plus or minus of that criteria, and you look at the last 3 to 6 months of properties that have sold that are similar, as close as you can get to them. If you drop a pin and you go around it and you keep going further and further out until you can get 3 comparable or more. That's past. That's the past perspective. That's what happened behind you. And for what I'm seeing in this market, the challenge that a lot of realtors are having is when you have 33% turnover every year of new agents coming in and agents dropping their license, how they viewed pricing properties was from 2015 to 2022. Okay, remember what we just talked about? You put a price tag on it, it's sold.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'll do is they'll look at the most recent sold and they go, okay, there's a model match. This is 2,200 square feet, and here's one that's 2,200 square feet, and this one sold for 700. So it's a week, 2 weeks later. So we should probably price it at 720 or 750. They just go up, right? If you're in a declining market, what's happened to the price? So the longer you sit at this wrong price, the less the seller's going to net, because it's walking away from you as time goes by. So you have to look at the trends. Are we up? Are we down? Are we flat? And then you have to not just look at the holds. I always
Okay.
look at.
So let me ask you something. Number of listings, up, down, or flat. That's all we really care about, right? Is inventory going up, down, or is it flat? If it's going up, it's be very difficult for sellers to capture a high price. If it's going down, less properties for sale, it's very hard for buyers to capture a low price. If it's flat, we got an even market. We all in agreement on that?
Well,
Yeah.
sort of, because you can have increased buyer demand. So you guys have seasons in Destin where you have higher population, like now, right? Where people
But generally, take the ebbs and flows of seasonal out for a moment. If you get more inventory, it's harder for sellers to capture market or price. If you have less inventory, it's harder for buyers to capture.
Well, this is where it comes back to contract ratio.
Yeah, because like right now, we're looking at a contract ratio in Destin on condos of a 6. In
Ooh.
Navarre, where Destiny is, it's 16.
So here, let me just keep going.
That's why you separate condos and houses, because they sell differently. And you know how condos, insurance, and all that crap, condos are not great right now.
So, well, I guess the way I look at it, guys, is I look at are the listings going up, down, they flat? Are the transactions up, down, or flat?
Yep.
You know, the pendings up, down, or flat? Because that tells me if there's competition in the market, and is it more or less? Is it trending up or down? Is the buyers in the market? That's my number of transactions and pendings.
Yes.
If there's few transactions and a lot of listings, that's a hard game to play if you're a seller.
That's the part that you have to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
You have to grasp that it's not just increase or decrease in the number of listings. That's where you're looking at the pendings, whatever your market calls them. If that number is the same as the actives that are coming on, you're in a buyer frenzy. But the lower that number is compared to the actives coming on, the slower your market is.
But once you understand the relationship of solds and pendings to new listings, then you understand the trend.
You don't need to have some elaborate program to figure it out for you. You just look at it week by week.
Here's the other thing you should do. If you don't have this Cromford thing, just look at your MLS every month or every week, and you'll know what's going on.
Yeah, if you look at the weekly and you see how many are going pending or not, and I don't know if you guys can isolate those numbers in your MLS. I can. You can figure out your own trend lines. And so when you're pricing a property, going on a listing presentation, you need to show that to the seller and say, hey, when they say, oh, I don't need to sell, I'm not in a hurry, this, that, the other, I'll wait for the market to catch up with me. Well, if you're waiting for the market to catch up with you and it's trending down, you're going to net less. Is that what you want?
Assuming you catch up.
And you show them that so they can see it themselves. It's not you giving an opinion. You're showing them charts and graphs. When you show them the story instead of just tell it, they have a brain. They can decide. And that helps you get a more appropriately listed property out of the gate. Going to the next thing. Now, here I'm showing you trends right here. So I show this for the active. on
Julie,
the
I'd
top.
like to, real quickly, I'd
Sure.
like for you and I to get together and create a spreadsheet of just basically, these are the things, plug and play, where people can put in the numbers and it will throw that out. And I wonder in the comments, if you'd like a copy of a spreadsheet that you can take these things and know what the conversations you need to have, comment me. I'd like to see that. And maybe you and I can get together and just create a real quick spreadsheet, simple spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's relatively simple, but if you look at like this, for example, now I'm getting into a specific property. So I'll just tell you, my listing is this one right down here. I don't know if you can see where my cursor is, 7813. It's number 1, 2, 3, 4 on the white, 7813 North Via del Sol. Okay. So this one, I had a very stubborn seller. I took it over from their best friend, had it listed. So you can see on the far right, it's 221 days on market. They started at 1.280, which was never, ever going to happen. Right. And then
You're looking for the irrational buyer.
Well, and this is an inexperienced agent. There are properties. You look at this spreadsheet, you see some of these numbers, you see some of these solds, you can see some of these costs per square foot. If you look on this column right here, list price per square foot versus sales price per square foot. These numbers are all over the place, but you can see they're in the 3 to 600s per square foot. See this one where it's a 624.39, 621. So that's what a lot of agents do. They take the highest cost per square foot and say, that's in the rearview mirror, and your house is completely gutted and remodeled and beautiful. So we're going to take this high cost per square foot because yours is beautiful, and we're going to get this. And you can't do that. You have to look at the trends. We've been flat. We've been very flat. And you also have to really compare. You have to bracket, okay? You have to say, okay, go look at all the properties you're comparing to. And if one is beachfront and looking at the beach, and one is looking at the parking lot, they don't compare. You have to compare parking lot with parking lot and beach with beach. This agent didn't do that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, then you come back and look at it and say, okay, where am I priced compared to everybody now? If you can see where I have my little mouse, I'm going up and down. So we're we're 545 per square foot. There's one at 589, one at 595, one at 555. There's only one that's lower. Okay, now we're positioned to sell. To see that? Not considering all the other things that they've done, which they've done a ton of stuff. But this is where you have to really know your market. John preaches all the time, preview, 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 preview. You got to do it. You've got to know, what does it smell like? What does it look like? You know, have they done updates? Have they not? They're not all the same. Zillow can do that. So you've got to really look at some of these things and consider those factors, right? So the trends, the contract ratio. Go ahead, John.
How important is stuff, would you think? Right? Yeah, but I just painted. Awesome. I just put in something. Cool. How important is that?
Okay, so you have to come back to, and this is what's so important. When I first learned how to do pricing, I was taught to look in the rearview mirror. And here's where you come back and look at these 5. These are my competitors right here in this zip code, in this community, in McCormick Ranch, right? They're plus or minus 20% of the square footage, plus or minus 50% on the lot. Now I have to look at each one of them and say, why is this one at $589.91 a square foot? Did they tear it to the ground and rebuild it? Or is this a home that was built in 1974 with green shag carpet? Are they the exact same floor plan? So this is where it comes back to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. And this is the most important thing that I learned about pricing property besides trends. These are the homes that buyer's going to look at. Be that buyer. Either go in them, personally look at them, or really examine them online. Every picture, Google Photos, what's behind, zoom in, zoom out. What is it back to? Oh, it backs to a park, a golf course, mountain views, or it backs up to a 6-lane highway. Okay, so what matters? Here's what people expect. When you are comparing to everybody else, if you throw out the outliers, people are expecting the AC to work, the roof to be functional and not leaking. They expect the house to be in substantially the same condition as your comparables.
Yeah.
So if your house is a piece of crap with green shag carpet, you got to go lower than the comps.
And price cures everything.
Yeah. So, but if it's done everything right, you might be able to. Right now, I'm not letting people go past the average, and I'm showing them the trend line is flat to declining. The other thing you have to look at, and I don't know if I lost it on my charts here, but okay, I'll come back to one. How many homes are selling this month based on what happened last year, right? How many homes sold last year in the month of January, February, March? And then you can show them, sorry, I'm trying to find it. Well, I guess I can't right now, but if you can show them in the month of February, 8 homes sold. In the month of March last year, 4, and the year before 5, and the year before 3. If the numbers are fairly consistent, and you saw that trend line I showed you where we're fairly consistent with last year and the year before, you can expect the same amount of homes approximately to sell. How many competitors do we have? You see how I showed you 5, but if you have 32, and of those 32, my price or my cost per square foot is in the top or the bottom, do you think that your home is going to sell compared to your competition? That's why you have to know your market, know your competition.
Yeah.
4 homes are going to sell, and there's 32 for sale, and you're priced at the very top. Do you think someone's going to pick yours? Do you want to roll the dice? And we're declining.
So Jessica's asking, wouldn't the current homes that are pending / contingent tell a better story on how to price versus close sales?
That's definitely a factor. But again, this is where you know your market. You should know all the homes that a buyer is looking at. And I'll usually say to sellers, especially when they're stubborn about the price, Cindy, I'd like to take you out and show you your competition. What's this afternoon look like? What's tomorrow look like? And I just need 2 hours. And you go and you pick them up and you show them all their competition. Or you might show them the pendings or the UCB and say, this is what someone just bought instead of your house. And then you show them what they're priced at, just the plain price, and then the cost per square foot. And they can see, here's what they're getting over here. And they might still say, my house is way better, this, that, and the other. But
I need. Yeah.
The market will tell you what you're going to get. It doesn't matter what you need.
Right.
So at least what I look at is the solds tell me what has happened. They are in the books, rock solid, etched in stone. We know that's what we know. Pendings tell us what we think. Now, the way I use them is like this. If the sold, say a similar properties are selling at 500,000, okay, they're in the books, closed, 500 grand. All right. Pendings. How many? If there's several, that tells you there's interest in the market. If there's one, it tells you at least there's one. And then the question is the list price on the pending sales higher, lower, or the same as the recent sold? If the pending sale list price is lower than the closed sale price, trends say lower, right? The prices are going down.
Very similar. If you're the same property, you've got to have something that is really killer better.
The likelihood that a pending is going to sell at list price these days is slim, and it's going to be less than list. So if the pending list price is equal to or lower than the most recent sold price, that's a market trending down. If it's higher, who knows? We're guessing until it closes. Does that make sense? And so I look at pendings. If there's a bunch of pendings, that tells me the market's active. Yay. If there's not, it tells me, ooh. And if there's a bunch of solds, it tells me what the market was. Pendings tells me where it is right now. Actives tell me where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. And the pendings and the if that's the term you guys use in your market,
or escrows.
Pending, UCB, CCBS, we've got all these different ones. If there's, got a, contingency.
Under contract, not yet closed.
Okay. Yeah. So all of them, use all of them. If the easiest way to remember the value of the contract ratio is just think if it's matching 100%, it's on fire. the market's on fire. The lower that pending, under contract, not yet closed is versus the number of active listings, the slower the market and the more aggressive you need to price because you're going down. So just think low, down, 100 high. And if it's above 100, it's the, multiple offer situation. And
how low do you go?
how low? Like you could have 0 pending.
Well, what on price? Well, how low should I go then?
Well, that's where I say put yourself back into the buyer's shoes. What are their choices? Go look at their choices. Be the buyer. Go look at every house. If you were the buyer and you had access to MLS and you could look at them all online first and say, I would look at this one, this one, this one, and then go look at them. And then when you say, well, this one's better than mine, I would buy this over mine. You have to show your seller that and say, do you think that they're going to pick yours over this one based on their prices, 2, 3, 4% lower than yours? And this one has a beach view and you're looking at the garbage dump.
Yeah.
Or are you willing to wait for this better property at a better price to get off the market so that you are next in line? Do you want to be?
Another one's going to come along anyway, and an
Exactly.
appraiser's going to have to look at it, and they're going to say that's not the same.
That's it.
Unless they're paying cash.
All right. So we're at 36 minutes. Can we start to tie this down and tie it up?
I would say that's basically it. Just know when you're pricing a property, know what's happening now. Don't just look in the rearview mirror, and understand that contract ratio helps you establish whether it's one community, one zip code. So Scottsdale, for example, our number is 137. Remember, in terms of not contract ratio, the contract ratio number is 33. Remember I told you 30 to 60 is average, but Scottsdale, these prices are above $1 million. So that's more of a 15 to 30 number. So we're actually still a seller's advantage market, but it's flat. So you have to understand what is the trend, who's my competition, and then price accordingly.
Yep.
So if we look at this real quickly, 0 to 30 says what?
That the buyer has the advantage, and you are probably trending down in pricing.
All right.
If you've not already been trending down, you're about to.
All right. 30 to 60, it's balanced. So
in a non-luxury market. So if you're not in a luxury, 30 to 60 is your balanced market.
Gotcha. And 60 and above, it is a seller's advantage.
And then you don't have to have a brain to be able to price a property.
There you go.
Because if you price it too low, you'll get multiple offers and bid it up. If you price it too high, you'll still get it. And that's what's wrong with what's happening right now. Too many realtors have never learned how to price properties, and they're pricing them as if it was a seller's market.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I had an interesting conversation this morning with one of my guys. We're talking about listing this property, and the seller wants to list it the same as everybody else, because then that will force the buyer to have to choose one of them, one of them. If they're all priced the same, they got to choose one of us. Yeah. What he's failing to realize, they ain't got to do anything.
Right.
They can choose to do nothing. And if it's priced too high, if all the candy bars are $25, well, they got to buy one of ours. I don't have to buy any candy bar. I'll pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's too expensive.
Be the aggressive one and get them. The other thing is, and this is what, I forgot to mention, you need to know what the compensation is. Are the listing agents willing to share what the compensation is? And is it 2.5? Is it 2? Is it 3 for the buyer's broker? So for example, I'm working with a buyer right now, and they're on the outskirts of Phoenix, and the area that they want to buy has probably 15 or 20 builder subdivisions around these resale homes. The builders are offering 4% of the sales price, 3% of the sales price. Normally builders are 3% of the base price. Sometimes they reduce it. So the builders are offering these really competitive compensations. If you're a seller in that area, you better be making sure that you're offering 4%, or you're not getting anyone looking at your house.
Yep. All right. Real quick, Mark, give us any thoughts, comments?
Well, I think that what we have to understand, I'll use an illustration from Bitcoin, not to be crazy, but people look at that and they say it's volatile. And as the prices creep up, the mindset of the masses is, oh, it's too expensive, I'm sitting out. as the prices come down, there reaches a point where the buyers go, hey, this is a deal. It's on sale. I'm buy. And then it starts moving back up. And I think we have to understand that you can price it in such a way that it's going to bring out the buyer that says, oh my gosh, this is a sale. I can't pass this up. And you want to understand where the trend is. I don't want to miss out because I see it going up, or it's going down. I'm going to wait a little bit for it to bottom out to purchase. Be thinking about the mindset of the buyer.
And that the problem is, and we've talked about this with buyers right now saying, I'm going to wait because of the interest rates, is as soon as it starts to trend up, it's too late, because what happens is now you have multiple offers. You cannot save faster than homes are appreciating if they're keeping up with just inflation. And now you have multiple offers, and what you lock in at 7%, you refinance when it comes down. You're not going to save the difference in waiting.
Darcy, give us a wrap up.
I know you want to wrap up, but I forgot to mention, and this is really, really important. When you go to a listing presentation, you explain to your seller and come up with the metrics, whatever your market looks like. I use one particular viewing number on MLS. So in our MLS, I tell them, if we're not getting at least 400 online viewings a week and 5 in-person showings a week, we need to lower the price. And then every Monday morning, don't let time go by. You call them and say, here are the numbers. What do you want to do? Then you don't have to wait and ghost them and be afraid to call them because you haven't talked and you've had no showings. Every week, whether it's 0 or whether it's 400, you call
Nothing
them.
something.
Is that metric something you determined in your market, or
Yes.
is there a way to determine what one's metric ought to be in their market?
Pay attention to your market and notice how many showings do we generally get before we generate an offer.
Okay.
Start to pay attention to that. Keep track of it. I know I'm usually about 5, unless it's open houses, then it's 12, because I can get a lot of people through in an open house and they're not all buyers. So you come up with a number and you tell them, here are the numbers. Then when you talk to them each Monday morning, you're saying, here are the numbers. What do you want to do? You know what these numbers mean.
Love it. Destiny, what's your takeaway?
I love the formula Julie gave us. It gives me a lot of perspective, and then just using that I wrote down 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, and 50 years time span to be able to present so that they have perspective when I'm talking to them. That's all I have.
Julie, last words?
Give them the numbers, because when you give them the numbers, they're in the driver's seat and it's not your opinion. So no matter how experienced or inexperienced you are as a realtor, you're putting them in charge, and then they will do, because you set the expectation, what you need them to do to get the home sold.
Authorship equals ownership.
Love it. So as a wrap up on pricing, what I would tell you is a couple of things. Understand if the market's going up, down, or if it's flat. If the prices are going up, that's good news for sellers. If they're going down, it's good news for buyers. Simple as that. If it's flat, it's dog eat dog. Let's fight. All right. Days on market come in there. All the pendings come in there. Just know the trends of a few stats. And then when you go to meet with a seller or a buyer, for that matter, make sure you ask them about their goals for buying or selling. All right. Is my goal to get out of here with the highest price? Is it to get out of here fast? Is it to get something? Is there a time frame where you got to understand what the seller's trying to achieve, or the buyer for that matter? Okay. And then you got to be able to position their goals into what is happening in the market, the current market. And then you have to be able to look at the trends to predict the probability of where the future market's going. All right. You can't say for sure, but based on what's happening now and what's happened in the past, the likelihood or probability is in the future. And tomorrow's a lot easier to predict than next week, which is easier than next month, and so on. Right. Mm-hmm. So understand where the market's at, where it's been, and where it's going based on the number of listings, the number of pendings, and the number of sales, and what those dollar values are. That'll give you a very good understanding. And then be very, 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 very underline, highlight, bold, good at talking to the buyers and sellers about their goals.
Monday morning, every Monday morning, have a phone call. Put
And
it on
for
the calendar.
Pete's sake, do not ghost them when you have 0 showings.
Mhm.
Do not ghost them. And do not ghost them when somebody says, you know what, the place sucked. It's brutal. All right.
That's the best time to call.
Yeah, you got to be, gentle, but you got to give them that feedback so they can make good decisions, right?
Mhm.
So there you go. All right, that's what I got. Let's carry on. Go back and watch that. There's some good stuff in there for sure.
And post me if you want a spreadsheet. Julie and I'll knock that out.
All right. Peace out. See you all tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Guys.